Hello, John. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Hello, Paul.
So I want to remind the audience that please click the like button, share the links. We really need that to help spread the word. But
And
also
do it right now, guys, because it really boosts it right at the beginning. This is what all the other folks tell us. So please, sorry to interject, but do it right now.
right. And then also in the description, there's links to John's website that I'm posting here. And click that link. That will take you to his website. You can sign up for periodicals. You can also sign up for readings. We'll talk about that throughout the broadcast here. But please click that link, go to John's website to help John out. So, John, our audience would like to know an update on what's going on in the world.
Well, it's interesting that in a way, because Trump does what other manipulation of the stock markets and stuff, and does his big moves, like after Friday or before Monday. And I was mostly gone away from here at my office, but about 2 hours ago, I came back and discovered that Mr. Trump wants to start a blockade of a blockade that isn't actually a blockade. The Strait of Hormuz has been open to freight and bulk carriers and other carriers if they follow the Iranian toll. And the other thing that's happened is that the so-called truce is over in a way because the Iranians couldn't find any common ground with the clown show of that's going on with the two realtors, real estate people trying to make a deal rather than real diplomats. And the vice president was there, but apparently couldn't uh, he's kind of wrestling with the Iranians and Kushner and Witkoff, who are trying to watch him like a hawk, so that he does what Netanyahu wants, and basically, Zionist insiders of our team made things that cannot be negotiated with the Iranians. They're not serious. I'm starting to think this whole truce thing was just a way for Trump to. Uh, Fortunately, he didn't kill anybody this time around, this fourth time, or the third. Well, he did kill people in the third time, and when they tried to do peace, and so um, they're all going home, and now we look to see what's happening. That today there were two American destroyers that crossed the line into the Strait of Hormuz into Iranian waters. The Iranians suddenly came out of their underground bases on the coast with their thousands of the Iranian Navy, by the way, has not been sunk. The Iranian Navy is made of thousands of speedboats. That's all they need to control traffic on the seas. And these speedboats, some of them have anti-ship missiles on them. Some of them are unmanned suicide boats, and they are following the kind of technologies that the United States and the West have just not kept up with. We're in a whole new world, the world of drones, water drones, underwater drones, and surface water drones, which have had, in Ukraine's case, had some pretty effective impacts on the Russian Black Sea fleet. That's made them now hide on the other side of the Black Sea. Of course, they can still fire the missiles from there and do what they could do a little closer. Um, so it's very different. War has changed vastly because of the NATO proxy US war using Ukraine as its proxy against the Russian Federation. And one of the things that's absolutely changed and revolutionized warfare down to even small units to major units is the impact of drones in the situation. Now, the Americans seem to be still trying to do a drone that drops a grenade on somebody, and that's like 5 years behind the times. And and so we've got a situation where Uh, I'm wondering if we're going to see some incidences in the Strait of Oman, um, because if you're going to try to if you're going to try to blockade the so-called blockade that allows people who pay to take their Iranian oil by ship, and a lot of these tankers are Indian and other ships, allies of the United States. And now you're going to bring your destroyers in. And frankly, when I look at the order of battle of the Navy assets we have here, I'm rather surprised to see. I remember in earlier naval engagements in this part of the world that there used to be like a couple cruisers, maybe three or four destroyers and frigates. You know, I'm seeing some of our big carriers that came in there earlier, like the Abraham Lincoln, just had two or three destroyer pickets. I'm wondering if the loss of volunteer crews, because it's a voluntary, the Navy's voluntary, has not just devastated the crews of transporting ships, which are pretty much thinned out, but it looks like they can't even man enough people to make the kind of missile pickets that you got to stretch all the destroyers and the cruisers out there to kind of catch the rockets that are coming in. So we might see some ships flaming soon, and um, and the United States is completely emptying its reserves of JASSMs, ATACMs, uh, cruise missiles, Tomahawks. I mean, I have been watching a long line of transport planes. It's probably the reason why this lull happened. It wasn't here to talk peace, but was to stock up and arm up further U.S. forces in the region and Israeli forces in the region with bombs. And, you know, they've already blown a quarter of the entire Tomahawk arsenal of the United States in just these few weeks of this war. One quarter of all the Tomahawks we have. And at the rate in which we build them, to replenish in what we did in a few weeks will take years. So there's this significant, ridiculous a squandering of the strategic, well, not the strategic, but the conventional stocks of the United States' weapons. If this thing goes on into May, we'll have to leave the battlefield in Iran because otherwise expose our country to having no weapons, conventional weapons at all, if anything else comes up. So unfortunately, that means the only weapons you have in abundance are nuclear weapons. So it's if it's Lucifer Looney Tunes. That's what I'll call it. It's Lucifer Looney Tunes. It's crazy, stupid, senile thinking. And that's very dangerous because um, yeah, now what's going to happen is that all this attempt to keep the prices down in transport and all that, that's going to start. We're now at a point where because the oil is so slow getting to port from the Persian Gulf, um, now what's coming to port is nothing. And now it's going to hit America. Now it's going to hit Europe. It's now there's no tankers or very few coming. Now the last good wave of normalcy is over. So this next week or two is going to see prices hike. It's going to see some really big problems that are laying seed to literally seeding a low yield crop production for the spring uh, crop growing. By the time we're in autumn, food prices are going to hike around the world. Right now, already a week ago, it started that Indian day laborers who are tens of millions of laborers and their families that often do a lot of the basic jobs, construction, other things, in the big sprawling cities of India. Um, they rely heavily on these little hole-in-the-wall restaurants. I mean, when I lived in India, I used to save rupees by going eating there too. And they are fundamentally cooking food on natural gas. And you see the cans everywhere. Well, I'm getting reports from different sources and also India that millions, tens of millions of people or laborers are getting down to where they're eating every 3 days. Some have not eaten for 10 days. Many are taking up their families and going back to the villages where they can find food. We're talking about 30, 40 million people on the move because they're already hungry. Um, and that means all those businesses that use these laborers to build things and do piping and all that, they're not going to be there. So, we're all getting an education in the world of super system co-connection, and one thing leads to another. So, and this is also happening. The gas problem's happening in Vietnam. It's happening in Southeast Asia generally. Um, you're uh, the other thing that's going to happen is if you lose the urea to create fertilizer as a byproduct, it's nitrogen that comes out of the process of distilling gas. You get nitrogen, you pump nit. This is the key to our green revolution that has allowed us to continue to expand and feed this bigger and bigger population of the planet Earth. We are now, I think, around 8.4 billion people. If you take 20%, by autumn, there's going to be, and as China is withholding, sending, a lot of big countries are going to hold on to their own fertilizer. China has a lot of people to feed, the second most populous nation, so they're not exporting their fertilizer. India is certainly not going to export its fertilizer. And what you're going to have is you may have a lower crop yield by the autumn harvest in the northern hemisphere that it might be 30% less to feed 8.4 billion people. And I tell you, there is nothing more fundamental, even atomic, in its ignition of revolution and social upheaval than people being hungry. It's what caused the French Revolution. But this was a natural disaster that happened uh, uh, almost exactly 365 days earlier than when the revolution began, when tornadoes came across central France and really ripped up the crop yield that by the harvest time, because that happened in July 14, of July 13th, 1888. By the time the next year came, food was too expensive for most people to eat, and that's when they started the revolution. Um, it was because I've said this before, but I'm going to drill it into everybody here that in 2011, the North Africa and the Arab world had to buy American grain because of global warming causing 500 megafires that burned one-fifth of Russia's grain yields to the point that they could not export. If they exported their livestock industries, all their animals would die of famine. And what that did is force the Western Asia and North Africa to buy their grain from the United States at a premium price. And it caused the expense was over the top of what people could fund. And it started revolutions across North Africa and the Middle East, which led to one of the worst civil wars of our times, the Syrian Civil War, which eventually ended up mortally wounding the state of Syria to its collapse just last year's end. So, one thing begets another, folks. It begets another and then another. And so when any of your I've been writing about super systems uh, since 1990, how, the system of food, the system of transport. The United States is it transports most of its food through trucks and its goods through trucking and road. We will probably be able to uh, stop um, exporting any of our oil to anybody else to keep our fuel prices low enough not to see all that rolling stock, not to see all those transports not roll and feed us, or give us our products, or the helium that we need to build more microchips for everything we need in this very technological world of AI and all. AI is going to go AOL if it doesn't have the helium, which also lost half the helium that comes from the Middle East to make these things. And helium you can't store. You have to keep it into a liquid. If it becomes a gas, it goes into space. So there, there, we have stupid people running the United States, maybe even some who are losing their marbles. Um, and they're dumb with power. Dumb plus power is a very dangerous situation. Um, so, and then the other thing that's important to understand is the astrological dimension of this. Now, I've been talking since last Sunday, or maybe before then, about this stellium of planets. A stellium is a super conjunction. That's a bunch of planets all being clustered together in the sky. And it's all in Aries. And today is the 12th. 4 days from now, that stellium will have the sun and the moon in Aries join it with Mercury, Mars, Saturn, and Neptune. Now, Sun, it rules. Now, the two themes about this, to keep it simple, is Aries is about new beginnings, but if it's afflicted, it's also sudden ends. Because all the things that we've built in the astrological cycle that we're finishing, Aries begins a new cycle. And these planets are going to you're going to see new beginnings, but the backstory is the new beginnings come to fill the void of a lot of things we've taken for granted in our civilization ending. And it's coming, if you look at the sun is ego essence. It's your essence of your persona. It's your I am, and it wants a new beginning. Or it wants to take a jump and destroy somebody that's in the way of that new beginning. Impetuosity, if Aries is unconsciously used, impetuosity, uh, impatience, say, oh, hell with it, I'm going to just hit him. That, oh, heck, I'll just blow up another Iranian delegation. That kind of ego trip happens. So the moon is also conjoined in coming into its new moon phase with Taurus. It's in its final quarter, its diminution. So it's a receding power going into the dark moon by the 18th, 19th. So that's a completion of something. And it's kind of this energy where we're not uh, I think it may be the completion of all this farce of people in the West trying to negotiate when they're really just trying to string this on and get more weapons that they're running out of to wage a war with somebody who clearly Iran is winning this war. It's winning at a great price to it, just like the Soviet Union won against Nazi Germany at a great price. But frankly, the Soviet Union did most of the fighting, dying, and defeating of Nazi Germany, and Iran is kind of a karmic echo now, not politically speaking, but in that they are becoming more powerful as a nation state and more unified, even though they're losing thousands of people and a lot of damage to their infrastructures and all. But of course, the Iranians have already planned for this. And a lot of those schools and buildings and universities that were somehow by AI America targeted for being military targets because the idiot organics that actually oversee these artificial idiots have were basically, oh, let's just program it like this. And they didn't use their human intelligence to ask the question that a machine, which is just a machine, won't ask. Like, well, if we get a certain dimension of a building that we then say do we say one size fits all? That a building this big has to be a military bunker or something? Did any of these people, I found out this shocking fact that the school in Minab that was destroyed with all the girls in it, little kids, 7 to 12, um, it all you have to do is go on open source and you can find out that it changed from being a part of a military base to being a girls' school back in 2016. And you can see pictures of it as a school. Now that tells me that U.S. intelligence, what an oxymoron, was didn't have living eyes of living intelligence monitoring their machines and making sure that the machine was not targeting a school full of children. But you can tell that the artificial intelligence had not been properly programmed by the living because in this war began a lot of the tomahawks were taking out universities and schools all across Iran because the dumb bot thought that, oh, this must mean I hope this is the reason because it's a whole lot of expensive tomahawks hitting schools, killing students and teachers. And I would wonder, because I've seen it happening in the Gaza Strip, that Israel took the same US planes and US bombs that they were piloting, and they willfully, systematically destroyed all of the Gaza Strip's churches, schools, elementary schools, universities. I watched them. I even watched when the occupation happened. They even blew up entire neighborhoods and were celebrating it. All these IDF soldiers, yeah, yeah, genocide. Um, they don't care. So this madness is, um, I wrote a very challenging Hogue prophecy report. I started the 8 articles, writing them on the 10th of March, and exactly a month later, on the 10th of April, I released them to my subscribers. And fully illustrated report of 8 articles in a PDF file that I send by email. And um, it was very challenging to keep up with all that was going on. When you got a real war going on, wars tend to just go in unpredictable places. And I managed to release it, and I wrote it in a way that was chronological. So I released it so that the second half of the articles, the final 4, are really about the future after this truce goes belly up, that it's just not functioning anymore. It was a farce. So um, I'm I was hoping that the negotiation would appeal to the more positive dimensions of the Aries stellium in beginning something new, like peace. Like, okay, let's really get a foundation to talk this out now, and let's be open to the reality of who's winning this war. And it's not the United States or Israel. They're losing this war badly. And this and what's happened instead is just the kind of impetuosity, just the kind of Saturn in its fall, because that's the key lynch to all this stellium is Saturn, the reality giver. That Saturn's usually people are afraid and don't like Saturn in their charts because Saturn basically illuminates when you're in your illusions. And it's never been a limiter of you when you're in your truth. So when you hear that Saturn's always restraining and limiting and making things hard, no, it's compassionately revealing to you that your path is false and you need to rethink it and embrace what's true about you in the situation. We have a leadership in the United States that is dead set against doing that. We have a president that even when he wasn't losing his mind was basically had the intelligence of an 8-year-old who, and he said that himself, by the way, before the first term of office on 60 Minutes. Go look it up. It's and here is his Truth Social blurbs that are coming out without anybody looking at him. No one, none of his cabinet is trying to say, okay, let's look at it and see if we should say that now. He's literally just spouting out and dictating out. Um, these reports, and some of them have been outrageous, like saying, we're going to tonight we're going to end the civilization of Iran, um, which implies we're going to kill 92 million people. Ridiculous statement, but you just don't say stuff like that. This is crazy, and the problem is that Saturn in its fall and we are in this period for 2 years with Saturn in its fall. When this stellium starts to weaken out by beginning in May and to mid-May, Saturn and Neptune will still be here. Neptune will be in its long transit through Aries all the way to 2039. So Saturn will be out in April of 2028. But it's pivotal in this because, long story short, about these two planets, Neptune's about mass communication. And if it's afflicted, it's mass communication and occult abuse, par excellence. And with Saturn, it means you have a world that does not want to grow up, a world that does not want to um, face reality, and you have and certain countries that are very much afflicted by it astrologically, and certain leaders like Netanyahu and Trump, and the chart of Israel and the United States, which I look at in these articles, are really well, for the Americans, it will be Trump's a square of his sun, Uranus, chaos, sun, essence, and his true north node, which is his lucky star, in a square with Neptune in Virgo in the United States chart, which, long story short, sinks or swims in boom and bust cycles. So, what Trump is doing now to destroy his presidency is he's setting himself up for an economic deep recession that'll be the end of him as president. So he lives by the boom. He's trying to create a false boom. He tried to create a false boom at the end of his first term, and in a way, he got a little lucky that the fraudulent election of 2020 cut him out and put poor drooling Joe Biden as another cognitively declined president in office. And this boom that he was talking in the campaign was really a big bust. But Biden didn't just let it go. He ended up throwing $3 trillion at it. He thought he could spend his way out of this. I mean, he obviously didn't understand that's just going to create more inflation. And so Trump got away with that, but he's not going to get away with this. Um, this is going to land on his lap, and that's it. And the economy will be um, in peril, and the Democrats will probably sweep the Republicans out of office. And at least I think both houses are going to the Democrats, and then the president will not finish his term. He will either face 25th Amendment issues about his sanity and impeachment. So he has no way to fix this. He's trying he's panicking. I mean, the way he's throwing things around is a classic example of his astrology of like he's just trying one new thing, one new thing. It's desperation. Okay, now I'm gonna throw up a blockade against the blockade today. Well, that's desperation talking. We have a panicking president who's having mental health issues, uh, and we're entering by a few more days the peak of the Aries stellium, which has me quite concerned that now that the war is resuming, um, it could get much worse. And that means Iran might resume its pounding of Israel day and night. And it's possible that, uh, and I've already written down that the stellium, when the stellium is at its peak, that's not when things really explode usually. That's the conception astrologically of something that's now set in motion. So it's usually after the stellium that you see the phenomenons of the consequences of decisions made under the stellium. So look to the second half of April to see the manifestation of the stellium that's happening in the next 4 days. I mean, I don't think next weekend is going to be some big blow up. It could be, but I'm more concerned about the third and fourth week of April, literally reaching a decision, first time since 1945, of nuclear weapons being used. Um, Hopefully, not too many. But Israel, if it gets pounded further, will come very close to the decision of the Samson option. And so Israel does have nuclear weapons, perhaps as many as 200. And I'm concerned that they will try to attack Iran across its length and breadth. It's the size of Western Europe. And it won't stop the missiles coming because they have prepared for that. These bases, I'm starting to see how these bases have been built over the last 25 years. Some of them are 850 meters under the ground. There's one mountain where all these missiles are hitting, and the mountain's scorched, but it's not doing anything. And they've also got these interesting things they've got where the missiles actually just come out of a reinforced door, come right out, fire, and pull the thing back in. There are fields, it looks like fields, but they're not. They're actually all under the fields. There's some fake tops that are put to look like the rest of the dirt and grass. And literally the missiles come right out of the ground. Like not, this whole idea that they're running around with trucks and launching on trucks, they've changed that. Most of those were decoys. They've even made decoys with a heat source so that missiles will think they're real. I mean, it's very clever. I mean, they've got these fake decoys have a heat source, and the radar goes, "Oh, that's got to be a real one." It isn't. It's just a better decoy. Um, and so there's going to come a point where I mean, we're going to see two major leaders in the world struggling with continuing to run things, Netanyahu and Bush. Sorry, Netanyahu and Trump. Um, we've had a lot of dumb presidents in the 21st century, so I kind of get I kind of get them confused. Who's dumber and dumb and dumber? Um, and so so here we are. So, are any questions out there?
Yeah, we do have some questions. Let's I want to say thank you to Rick. He has been telling the audience that please go and sign up for your periodical, that they're very informative. So I appreciate Rick for typing that into the chat.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, he wrote me the other day about it, I think, and yeah, it was. I'm getting a lot of feedback from my readers, except for one mopey MAGA person. All the other people have really liked it.
We do have a question. If you could go a little bit more in detail about Aries being aligned with war or conflict.
Yes, yes. Well, Aries rules um, March, um, and Aries April. March is literally. Um, I mean, let's see, what's this? It is, well, God, I've been a little tired here. Um, anyway, Aries is the ruler of April, I believe, and March is the precursor of it. That I mean, a little the last part of March into April is usually in ancient times in the Mediterranean civilizations, where a lot of the Western astrology is born, is the season to start war. Literally, the word March is a variation of Mars, god of war, if you're translating Ares from Greek to the Roman god's name, same person. Ares is the god of war. And you will find that for thousands of years, most war campaigns in a war begin in late March into April. And so, because it's that's why they named that period ruled by the god of war. If it's Rome, Mars. If it's Greece, Ares. So, but it's not just that. Aries is the beginning of a new astrological cycle where planets start their journey through the 12 houses of the zodiac. And so we have a whole cluster of them that, and in this, four of them in this cycle that have all entered Aries in a big way. So big changes. To keep it simple, it's big changes, big beginnings, some good, some not. And the stellium is magnifying the pressure to either go to war or to make amends, make peace. Uh, start this new stellium by not going to war. Although I must admit, I'm trying to be more positive about something that I think very much right now the energy is walking eyes wide blind into war, and in the most dangerous time is starting after next weekend through April into May, which I may have to write about as May Day, May. Uh, then the wars may either go into a long grind of attrition for 2 more years. We are in World War III, folks. We've been in it since February of 2022 in its conventional phase. Um, we had the Cold War that everybody thinks was the Cold War actually ended in 1989. In 2014, as I predicted, there's another shorter Cold War that goes hot that started in February of 2014. And there was all these years of a civil war with Ukraine that eventually went into an international war by provoking Russia to get into it, the United States and NATO, provoking Russia by pressuring, trying to make Ukraine part of NATO, and having President Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference a few weeks before the war started, literally begging for nuclear weapons. Like he was saying, we used to have nuclear weapons in Ukraine. It was a mistake that we let them go. That's a bald-faced lie. Those weapons at the end of the Soviet Union were the property of the Soviet Union, which had become the Russian Federation. And it was decided by the first Ukrainian president back in 1991. And the president, Boris Yeltsin, or Gorbachev, I think, might have still been there. But the idea was that that they were given back to their owners, which would be the federal state. Ukraine now is no longer a part of the federal state. It wasn't theirs to give up. So that's one of the big myths. But here's Zelensky. He's just like this clown person saying openly things that should never be said, have never been said in a civilized society about nuclear weapons. He says, give us your nuclear weapons. Like, here's this most corrupt country with a bad mafia and a Nazi problem. That's, oh, give us nukes. What could happen with that, huh? Yeah, let's give some nukes to the Stefan Bandera Nazis. You know, it's like handing nuclear weapons to Hitler. It's like, oh, yeah, tanku, tanku. Um, it's so that's what provoked the Russian Security Council and the Russian president to say, my God, if NATO tries to insinuate itself in this place, because it's a red line for us, if you get into there, you're in our soft underbelly. You can hit Moscow. It's only 400, 500 miles away. So this was an existential, just like with Iran, Russia's in an existential crisis. So they went in. They got involved in the civil war on the Russian-Ukrainian side to basically make sure that nuclear weapons are not and NATO are not based in Ukraine, and they'll go all the way with it. I mean, this is a Cuban Missile Crisis moment, folks. It's like when Soviet Union put intercontinental ballistic missiles in Cuba that could hit only 90 some miles off the coast of Florida, who could hit Washington in 4 or 5 minutes. That's exactly the problem Moscow had with NATO. If NATO had moved all of its forces into Ukraine as a member of NATO, it's a gigantic Cuban Missile Crisis because Ukraine's a big country. And literally, that means there wouldn't be enough time for Moscow to know if something fired from Ukraine was a nuclear missile or not. So they have to automatically assume that it is. And suddenly they launch, and Ukraine is no more. Uh, and then that starts the whole nuclear war that ends civilization. So this is dangerous stuff. And with an unstable country that is riddled with fascists that we put into power through the Obama administration. Right? Here's some of you guys hearing me saying this. If you live in America or Europe, your ears are burning because you will not be told this by your lamestream news systems. You will be told the propaganda, all this propaganda. Now, you might think I'm spouting propaganda, and all I can tell you is don't believe me, don't disbelieve me. Be skeptical as the word really intends to be means. Investigate, but not with bias. That's cynicism. Everybody is speaking, oh, I'm skeptical about this. They're misusing the word. Skepticism says, I'm going to check that out. But the checkout has no qualification of, oh, it's BS, and I'm going to check it out and make sure it's BS. That's cynicism, not skepticism. So um, yeah, doubt what I'm saying, but go into the alternative media and see if you're just watching CNN and Fox, fine. I watch it too, but I also watch the media that has most of the really good people that used to be on in the mainstream media who were fired for telling the truth. Now they're over there. And I would say if you become a member of the Hogue Prophecy Report, I am a doorway with all the links. I link all my sources. You can find all of my sources and check them out for yourself. And I only can say is if you're still thinking you're living in a world where you can trust your news agencies that like I grew up with when you saw Walter Cronkite talking about stuff or Eric Sevareid or Huntley and Brinkley on NBC. It was a lot better journalism back then. But if you're still in the habit of thinking you're getting real journalism from Fox or CNN or MSNBC, NBC or CBS or ABC or PBS, I don't even know if they're still around anymore. Um, um, how do you know? How do you know you're getting the news right? How do you know they're getting the news right? You, unfortunately, we're not living in a world where you can rely on just sitting there and watching the news every day and presuming that you're getting real news. So I represent an alternative media and I'm open to giving you my sources, but you're going to have to do a little more work than just be a couch potato. We're living in a time now where American citizens need to rise up and preserve the constitutional right. The only profession that the Constitution mentioned outside of governance of the United States was that there had to be a free press. It's in your First Amendment, the most important revolutionary amendment of our country. And that means what's happened in the United States is people were active in their political world because democracy requires it. We have grown a little lazy about that, and then the powers that be that are kind of turning this place into a plutocracy have also made sure that you're not getting your civics classes in high school and in college. They literally don't want you to know what is the thing that makes your democracy live or die. Your rights. Go out and read the 4,500 words of the US Constitution and Bill of Rights. Read it. You can't be an American if you don't, because to be an American means you have to be an informed citizen. If you're not, your democracy will die. So, you got to empower yourselves. And the one way to empower yourself is start looking at, if it's a little disturbing to watch, if you're feeling, oh, I don't know if I want to watch Scott Ritter or Larry C. Johnson, or I don't know if I want to watch those two Greeks on the Duran. I don't know, or Mohammed Morandi, who really has been a great source for ages for me from what's really going on in Iran. Start looking at them. Just those names. Just Scott Ritter. Type that in, search for it. Larry C. Johnson, Sonar 21. Just check it out. Look at the Duran. Look at Alexander Mercouris. Look at Alex Christoforou of the Duran. Look at Sabby Sabs. Look at there's all kind there's all kinds of people to just type it into YouTube and watch some of it. I mean, I'm thinking next time I'm just going to make a whole list of them so I'll make it easy for you. Just these names. Just go in and check them out. And you will find that there may be a very different story being told by them. And we're talking about great journalists like Chris Hedges, who's been around forever. He used to be a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist at the New York Times until they fired him for telling the truth about how there was no weapons of mass destruction. And he said, well, you can't do that again. He did it. And he said, you cannot do that again. Well, if I'm not having free speech as a citizen, then I resign. And now he's out there doing it on his own. There's John Mearsheimer. There's somebody you ought to check out. God, there's so many. There's Danny Haifong. Great show. There's Nima. I'm sorry, Nima Akoforshid. He is an Iranian expatriate that lives. He went to Iran just before the war happens, but he has a show called Dialogue Works, and it's a very good show. So I mean, I'm just ready to give it to you now, even if you subscribe to me or not, because I want you to be informed. I'm contending that you're so misinformed if you follow mainstream news that you will fulfill the prophecy of Matthias Stormberger, who in the late 1700s visualized 3 world wars with breathtaking accuracy, the first 2. He talked about a 3rd world war where he said in one morning more people would die than all the wars put together. And they would walk with open eyes into these catastrophes. Now, how can people walk with open eyes into nuclear war? It's because they're not informed. You are not informed. You need to expand your perception of the news you're getting. The life of your civilization and your family and yourself is on the verge if you do not. Because I tell you, I've been in this for 40 plus years. I am seeing things that I've been warning, like this Iran war. I've been writing about it since 1987, documented, warning people about it coming. I've been writing about the this time being the time of the third and final Antichrist, Mabus from Nostradamus, who would be an Arab prince. I've been writing about that since 1983 and updating and expressing it. And now it looks like it might be MBS. The A and the U is added to hide the famous acronym. Just like it didn't make any sense about the capital not wanting dubia. And then when I first wrote about it, I thought maybe this is about Nixon and a scandal or something. I'm not sure. But then by the end of the century, when I wrote that in 1995, by the end of the century, I realized, because Nostradamus loves nicknames, dubia is George W. Bush's own personal nickname for himself. Dubia is spelled dubieux in French, which means un dubieux means a doubtful one. Who the capital spelled in only time he spells it like the US capital with an O, doesn't do it anywhere else in his prophecies, where those of the capital will not want him. And all of his great plans and ambitions will be dashed. Yeah, he goes to war in Iraq, gets in a quagmire, ends up in the final year of his presidency being partially responsible for the Great Recession, and then tries to buy it off with $1 trillion of something, and just started us on this road that we're on. One of the dumber presidents that we have had. And I'm in a strange space with this because I'm now, halfway through my 70th year, and I am seeing things that I've been warning about for 4 decades, and they're all coming to a head. It's quite something to see. On the one side, it's like, wow, that's amazing that I foresaw it. And the equal problem is, wow, why is it happening? I never wanted to see these things happen. I fought and communicated and warned for the bulk of my adult life about these very days, the next few weeks. And, I did my best to warn. Um, and maybe if the worst happens, then the shock of the upheaval may wake the human race up. Sometimes to be scared is good if it scares you straight. And what I've learned about Nostradamus, one of the most pessimistic prophets I've ever studied, is that he tried to scare the human race straight. And I don't know if I think it succeeded in some ways, but I mean, he talked about Hister. He talked about Hister of the Crooked Cross, of Greater Germany, who would invade in the forest of the Ardennes. He says, Le Sylvain d'Ardennes. It's not an anagram. It's not open to interpretation. He said a great empire would fall through a fight through the Sylva Ardennes. The prophecy was numbered quatrain 45 of Century Volume 5. What happened in the Ardennes forest in World War II? Well, two things. The French Empire, colonial empire, fell into Nazi hands in 1940 when the panzers of Germany came through and cut off the French and British expedition force armies as that plunged into Belgium, and they cut them off and they had to escape through Dunkirk, the survivors. That was what helped Hitler win the Battle of France, isolate England for a while on its island, losing all of its trucks and guns and everything on the beaches of Dunkirk. And Hitler then said, okay, I have a window now where I can invade the Soviet Union, which was his Iran. He said, all you have to do is kick the door of the Soviet Union open and the whole edifice will collapse. He was so confident that he said, "Oh, we'll take the Soviet Union. 80 million Germans going against 280 million Soviet citizens in a time zone of 11 time zones, with a massive capability of industrial might if they were forced into war." He went after the giant, and Iran is the giant in the Middle East now. So there's a parallel. There's an amazing parallel. People always are trying to compare somebody in our times as the new Hitler, and a lot of them are really silly, like Saddam Hussein. Oh, he's a Hitler, or this or that. But I have shown how the karmic echo of Hitler is best represented by Benjamin Netanyahu. He has done the same pattern as Hitler. He's very like Hitler. He's intelligent. He's quite a political evil genius. He is, people go, "Oh, don't say anything good about Hitler." I mean, I even know Jewish friends of mine, well, not friends, but like Ted Postel is a go-to guy for ballistics. That's another person you should check out about all the missiles and stuff that are going on. I saw him the other day saying to his friends who were rather upset with him, he's saying, "Oh, no, no," disparaging Hitler. I said, "No, no, Hitler was a very smart man. He was a political genius. How can you say that about Hitler?" Well, he took over Germany. He had smarts. This whole idea of disparaging bad people, and not you won't learn if you turn evil people into a stereotype. You won't learn about them. If you These are human beings. Everybody's got a Hitler inside them, as well as something divine. And so, you know, if you don't understand the very chilling reality that Adolf Hitler is a human being just like you, that if you kind of remove him from the human race as Darth Vader, then you're not going to learn, and another Hitler will come. And I think we have him, and that's Benjamin Netanyahu. I've been watching him for decades. And what he has done is what Hitler did. He is pathologically a genius, a pathological genius. He upends sane people by his moves. He had certain countries that he has since 43 years ago a desire to create a greater Israel, just like Hitler had a greater German Reich, a greater Germany that would cover all the way to the Ural Mountains to Europe. Netanyahu has been a very staunch Zionist trying to create a greater Israel that would fulfill what the Mogen David flag has on it as symbolizing the goal. You ever wonder what those two blue lines on the white field of the Israeli flag are about, where you have the Mogen David in the middle? One is the Euphrates River, the other is the Nile River. These are the borders of Greater Israel, which basically encompasses Western Asia. The Soviet Union was all the thing left standing for Hitler to knock out, and he would have had his Greater Germany. The only thing left after Hezbollah had been decapitated its leadership after Syria collapsed, which was done by Israel and Turkey. The only thing Netanyahu had in the way, he's even saying, "I'm 40 years, we're so close, keep going," is to take down Iran. And this is where his karmic echo is going to have the same result. Hitler was defeated the day he invaded the Soviet Union. And within 3 years, Nazi Germany was utterly destroyed. Netanyahu has taken his people into a same disaster. And this one could go nuclear as he goes down in flames. He's not going to defeat Iran. And who knows, Iran may lose as many people as the Soviet Union did. Soviet Union lost 27 million people, but were the power that actually defeated Hitler more than the Allies and all the Western Allies and all. They did the lion's share of defeating him. Now, Iran is now a country of 92 million people, that's big for the area, fighting 7 million Jews and 4 million Palestinians that are considered second-class citizens in Israel, in the apartheid state. Um, little Germany hit the big Soviet Union, little Israel has hit Iran. I mean, I'm not for this stuff. I'm just saying this is an echo to the past that's being repeated again with nukes now, because Iran might have them now. When the first six bombs Israel dropped, made in America, were dropped on the compound that killed the Grand Ayatollah and Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and it also took out all the moderates that were around him who did not want nuclear bombs being used by his country. By killing him, you effectively replaced him with hardliners. His son, Mujtaba, is probably they're building the bombs now. They should. They need a deterrent. If you have this mad nation that is using the excuse because of a misread of prophecy, um, you have to defend yourself. If you were Iran, what would you do? If you were being attacked by a group of people, a nation, and then as they're losing, have an option to go nuclear on you. It doesn't take a brain surgeon or a genius to figure out what you need. You need to use nukes as a deterrent. And what could happen as a surprise in the next few weeks or months, we might see a nuclear test, underground test, that will be announced. That Iran, to end the madness and not be bombed by nuclear war, which would, by the way, it will cast, if all the Iranian cities above ground are on nuclear fire, pumping up a whole lot of debris into the atmosphere. There's now evidence that if there was what I was predicting back in 1990, what I called the danger of nuclear bush wars. I wrote about it in the book, The Millennium Book of Prophecy, which was written in 1990 and came out in 1994 on Harper San Francisco. Go check it out. You will find that if we were looking at the model of India and Pakistan having a nuclear war, and now it's becoming apparent that if you flame out 100 metropolitan areas, not like thousands of the big nuclear war, you will create enough climate change to a temporary cooling off, that will completely disrupt the world's crop industry, the super system of feeding you. And even though hundreds of millions in India might have died from the direct blast and radiation effects, 2 billion of you around the world will die from starvation. And a lot more of you will go hungry, but not die from starvation. So hitting Iran with 20 or 100 nukes is is not going to stop these bases from firing. And it will cause a climate disruption that will break down your food system. And in these new things, I had to now, unfortunately, drag in Nostradamus's global famine prophecies, because they now sound very contemporary potentially. So I know this is scary. I know it's hard to face. But if there's smoke in your house, don't wait till there's fire. You've got to do something. You've got to take back your democratic power as a citizen. Because right now, you're not really living in a democracy. You're living in the United States in a lawless administration. when you've got a president first in history to say, my morality is superior to any laws. Um, that means he's not following the Constitution. You know, we haven't actually gone through any legal process to start this war, declare a war or anything. It's all on the cuff, spontaneous, and a completely bought off Congress by AIPAC, the Jewish lobby, Israeli lobby, not Jewish, but Israeli lobby. There are a lot of Jewish people, majority of Jewish people in the world, including myself who have Jewish heritage, are not supporting the Zionists. So this is what's going on. So I'm sorry to be playing Jeremiah all the time. At least I'm not running around naked in my office going, repent, repent, like Jeremiah did down the streets of Jerusalem before the Babylonians took them down and put them in Babylonian captivity for not listening to him. Um, any more questions? Sorry, everybody, but that's I have
You know,
to tell you what's going down.
we have two more questions that I want to bring up here. Let's in previous episodes we keep on mentioning that we want to go a little deeper with Casey. So this question is talking about Casey said that a small number of souls living in genuine spiritual alignment could create an energetic field strong enough to shift the trajectory of a much larger population. How to do this and who should do
Oh, this is a great question, and this is one of the things I write about. I am not aware in my studies of Edgar Cayce that he ever said this, but I might be indirectly responsible for something being misdirected to Edgar Cayce, although he was a great prophet. Um, I have been maybe it's going around and it's getting changed because I've been writing about it for a long time. Um, Fundamentally, this that all the darkness of unconscious behavior um, is a quantity. Luminous consciousness of your inner being, which is your potential, is a quality. The way the natural law of it follows is that the quantity of darkness, no matter how vast it is, cannot put out a candle. You take all the darkness in the universe and have it try to put out the light of a small candle. Fundamentally, darkness is an illusion. Now, so I will share with you something I haven't shared yet on any show, but it's quite a thing that happened to me. I had a debate about this, and you might be surprised to find out who I was having this debate with. But before I say that, in a preliminary to it, I want to propose to you that when I lived in India, I discovered the story that happened around 500 BC, where in India, all the kingdoms of India had this mounting feeling of grace coming over them that took a few decades, and then there were 10 years where there were no wars. All the caste systems, all were living in harmony. The kingdoms of India were living in harmony for 10 years. And the pundits and mystics and scholars were thinking, and they were communicating through letters with each other what they thought happened. So it was a debate that went on because after 10 years, it slowly faded, this grace, as it rose. And what they finally concluded, they say, what was different? What was going on that was out of the ordinary during those 10 years? They concluded on this, that in those 10 years, there were five great gurus, five great masters. Guru in Sanskrit means it's a human being that's like a monsoon cloud. His love and his sharing of presence is like the monsoon cloud that cannot hold on any longer to its rain and just gives it to everything. It'll give it to the rocks. It'll give it to the little Bengalis with their umbrellas that go like this, so they're high and dry and can't get wet with it. I mean, everybody's ego has been trained to be like a Bengali umbrella, where you're inside and you don't even know you're holding this thing to block the divine from you, and you're going, "Oh, why am I so high and dry?" And it's showering on you all the time. The guru effect is like a monsoon. It must give its love. It doesn't judge who receives it. It just flows. If it falls on stale, dead land, it flows. But every once in a while, it hits a patch of fertile soil with seeds of potential inside it that are just aching to break out of their seed identity and turn into flowering. So that's what guru means. And so there were five great gurus. You might know the names of some of them. There was there was Gautama Buddha. He was the youngest, and the eldest of the five was Mahavir of the Jains. There was also Keshkambala. Some of the others have fragments of their sutras that still survive. And they were I thought Keshkambala's sutras were even more remarkable than Buddha's, what's been left of getting to the wordless with words, to the source of words, which is wordless. So, so they decided that just five people of great love and consciousness was enough to stop wars and bring harmony just by existing in the region, their auras affecting this just in 10 years. So this gave birth to another theory in the 20th century that, although Edgar Casey was there, and I don't know, maybe he said this. It'd be nice to hear he was also saying that. It was kind of tuned into that. But what I do know is that some of the greatest mystics of the 20th century were also discussing this. One was Jiddu Krishnamurti, who I met three times. The other was the late Gurdjieff, George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, who died in 1949. I was born 5 years later, so I never met him, but I've read his work and seen his videos. He's a remarkable mystic. He also saw this. And my guru, my master, Osho, also talked often about this, that all you need is to, in all the billions of people on this planet, and all the need to kind of provide a space for them to flower into their full potential of enlightenment, all you need is 200 more than the average. Just 200. And that's enough because consciousness is a quality. Consciousness is a quality that cannot be destroyed by darkness. It takes the darkness away because the darkness does not exist. And now I come to, I think I can't even count how many thousands of radio shows I've done since 1987 all over the world. Thousands. Um, but I can tell you, I've been over 30 years with Coast to Coast. Seems like they don't want me anymore because it's getting too close to being fulfilled. But it was a wonderful ride. I'm glad Art Bell had me on, and I'm glad George had me on for so long. Thank you, you guys. Um, I'm still available. Um, but people get afraid, when you're saying stuff that's far off, decades away, and then now it's on their doorstep. They tend to punish the messenger. It's just the way it is. I predicted the two towers collapsing in on a major Fox network show starting in March of 1996. We filmed it in November of 1995. And I had it's called Prophecies of the Millennium. And when asked about would the Trade Center towers be attacked again like they had been in 93? They said yes, they'll be attacked and they're going down. And then in the following year, I was finishing writing Nostradamus, the Complete Prophecies, which is the biggest complete prophecy attempt of anybody. It's in 4.7 centuries. So I wrote it in the mid 1990s. In it, I listed at least 20 different references to that would probably happen in 2001, that it's going to happen in New York and the towers are going to go down. So I'm documented for saying this. I also told, I was visiting a colleague, Hans Holzer. I guess we got to know each other because we're in the H file, Hogue and Holzer. So had a lovely dinner with his friend in Riverside in New York City in November. I think it was November or October of 1994 when I was releasing Nostradamus: The New Revelations. And we had a lot of talk about stuff, and he told me, now this is the man who did The Prophet Speak. This is the man who was one of the great parapsychologists in the occult field. And he had a whole coterie of very famous psychics uh, that were all, he was telling me, they're all feeling something really bad is going to happen, and New York is going to be hit by a nuclear attack or something. And what are you feeling? And I said, I just got quiet and my voice changed. I watched my voice change and I said, there's not going to be a nuclear attack on New York, but stay away from the Battery District. That's down where the towers are. It's doomed. It just came out of my mouth. A little voice changed and it says doomed. Tell them that. But you don't have to leave New York. But don't stay around the two towers. Um, that was 94, and then I end up 2 years later, a year later, making the thing, and then it ends up being broadcast across the United States on the Fox networks. It's not the news network. This is the entertainment network with Alamos, the Latin American actor, as the host, who did the second Battlestar Galactica. He played the captain in that remake, and he's done other amazing stuff like playing the origami guy with the blue eyes in Blade Runner, in the first version of Blade Runner. And so anyway, I am um, so the show goes on. And I think it was broadcast over the next 6.5 years. And then it was broadcast 2 weeks before 911 across the United States on cable. And it was the reason why I got blacklisted and banned from doing anything on the Fox network, just because I was right, just because I was warning. I didn't want this to happen. I risked talking about it because it was going to happen, and I wanted it not to happen. It's a very strange experience for me because now I've had Nostradamus. If this was comparable to Nostradamus in my own prophecy career, this was equal to Nostradamus seeing and documenting his king dying in a jousting accident that would cause a civil war of revolution, of religion. And I've just been translating his almanacs, doing something that hasn't been done yet in English. And I'm finding in his almanac for 1559, where that happened, he talked a lot more in prose prophecies about the danger of an eclipse that was coming to its boldest point in September of 1559. But he said the malevolent forces of this would be sprung and active by June into July. That's when the king, against all saying, hey, don't joust anymore. You're getting older. You're good at it, but this is dangerous. And his own wife was saying, Queen Catherine de' Medici was already not just hearing, she read Nostradamus' prophecies. She was the first one to read them because she used to ask the royal copyright offices if there any occult book came their way that she reads it first. So I'm I think there's a good chance that Catherine de' Medici in 1555 actually read, is the first person to read the first serialization of Nostradamus, where it predicted the death of Henry II from a jousting accident, or he would become the great King Turin Seelan. Henrik is Turin in old spelling of Henrik. Sedin is Seelan. He never wore his wife's royal livery. He wore the livery of his mistress, Diane de Poitiers, who was like 15 years his elder. And she bathed herself in milk, so she was very good at keeping herself really fresh and beautiful even late in her life. But so anyway, um, the Catherine de' Medici summoned her to court through permission of the husband, and they had a meeting with Nostradamus in court. And I imagine Nostradamus showed the two possible futures because he wrote dozens of prophecies about Henry II conquering northern Italy uh, as Cirencelan. Uh, but there's also this other prophecy where he becomes in 1559 the year of the one-eyed king that he wrote years before it happened. There's no French king that was a one-eyed king until Henry in 1559. And so that's the year. And he talked about that starts the breakup between Protestants and Catholic subjects. Mostly the aristocracy was majority Protestant and a minority Catholics who were running everything. And the king was Catholic. And so what began were nine bloody civil wars that started while Nostradamus was alive to see the first one in 1562-63. They raged off and on all the way to 1598, causing great death and destruction. And there's nothing more vicious than a civil war that's religiously based. And it was so uh, that's what put Nostradamus on the map. My prediction about 911 put me on the map. And fortunately, I was not burned at the stake. But Nostradamus, when he said that then the king would die of a cruel death, the man, Gabriel de Lorge, who was the Count of Montgomery of his Scottish bodyguard, the king's Scottish bodyguard, he was the man who, in the joust, didn't lower his jousting stick enough, which ended up driving a huge splinter like a javelin through the gilded cage, as Nostradamus described it, in and blinding the king in one eye. And the rebound actually was so bad that his brain got infected and he died 10 days later in agony. He said he would die a cruel death. So what do the people do? What does the man who was responsible for the accident do? His first statement when he heard the king had died was, "Curse be the one who predicted so evilly and so well." Nostradamus spent years warning about this coming. He was not trying to make it happen. He was trying to prevent it. I spent 6.5 years warning. Actually, starting in 83, I was talking about it in my articles of this terror attack in New York. Warning, I was trying to stop it. And what did Fox do? They didn't talk to me for 2 years. They were cowards. They weren't even brave enough to say, "We don't want you around." They just ghosted me. And I found out about it when I was the person who contracted and did the prophecies of the millennium uh, was Bram Roos. He called me up for another project. It didn't go through, but the most important thing happened in that phone call 2 years later was that I said to him, "Why isn't Fox talk? They're not answering my emails, phone calls." I literally called on 911 as the things were going down to the producer that I worked with when I kind of flustered Sean Hannity in the final day of 1999 on Fox, Hannity, and Combs. And they loved it that I did it. So I called her and said, "Look, we foresaw this. on a Fox special. We should bring the people back. I should come back and we should look at what we got right and got wrong. And she's, that is a fantastic idea. I'll talk to the suits. And then she hung up because it was like war room in there because, you know, they're just blocks away from all this stuff going on in the battery. And so I, the answer to being accurate, well, that's how I found out from Bram, because Bram on the phone, there was a silence. And he said, "You mean you don't know what happened?" "No, nobody's talked to me." I said, he said, "Oh man, you scared the CRAP out of them. And they ghosted you, they blocked you, you can't do any Fox stuff anymore." And so that's how, as many people call me this over the years. It's not my term for me, but since so many people call me this, I'm starting to think I should probably just, out of respect for them, they call me the American Nostradamus. I even had films producers try to do a documentary about it, but it fell through. Um, and so, you know, as the American Nostradamus, I had a kind of a karmic echo to what happened to Nostradamus, because after Delorge made that terrible statement, there were mobs that went out of Paris that night to a chateau that was outside of Paris to demonstrate that chateau belonged to the Roman Inquisition, people that burned people, like the Spanish Inquisition half a century or so before. The Roman Inquisition, they went to the offices with effigies of Nostradamus. They set the effigies on fire before the church justices and demanded that they burn Nostradamus to death. Being right, not trying to create it. There's this weird thing about human beings that if you predict a dire prophecy and it comes true, you somehow were invested in that happening. That's utter craziness. But it still exists. Human beings change their countries, their flags, their clothes, their religions, but deep down, they don't evolve very much spiritually, except for a handful. And that's all we need. Just a handful of people. So when you pray, pray for grace on the world. When you meditate, fill yourself with light. If you're one of the 10,000 Buddhas that my master talked about, where they weren't, most of them were not even disciples of his. If you're the 10,000 Buddhas, you're the pool where the 200 will arise. Now, if, now talking about this very dangerous portal that we're entering through the Aries stellium, that's coming in a few days and will last through the into May. One of the most dangerous or changing moments in human history is about before us. If if the 200, somebody asked Osho, my master, are the 200 here already? And he said, yes, they are. Now, I've said before on the show that they're asked the wrong question. Osho would ask your question according to its quality. And I would have asked him this: Osho, are the 200 not only here, but are they aware of their Buddhahood? He might have answered differently. So I had this debate with an actress that changed my life in her movies. It was because of this actress's performance in a movie called The Turning Point that I made a very important life-changing decision to walk away from my very promising opera career and go back to writing. I real Because the movie is about somebody similar to me who was a ballerina, and she was in classical arts. You really have to put your whole being into them. It's not an idle thing to be an opera singer or a dancer or an orchestral. a conductor or an actor. You have to put it all in there. And I had put from my mid-teens up to my early 20s, I had put everything into being an opera singer. And but I was not finding that I could cope with the politics. I wasn't good at it. Even when I pretended to do the politics, they used to go, "Ugh, they're doing it all wrong, making me feel like I should." You know? And you are, but anyway, so I said, "Oh, that's not going to work." So out of the blue, I find out from her press person that none other than Shirley MacLaine um, was an avid reader of mine. She had read all my books that I'd thus far composed, 11 of them in the 1990s, 1980s. And she had this show on her website and she wanted to do an hour with me. And so we did an hour on by phone, a phoner as we call in radio, and she asked a question that she had been asking all the people she knew and associated with for years, decades. And she wanted to ask me this question. Is evil a is evil a conscious force that's conspiring to destroy us? Is evil like some alien society or something that's really out there conspiring to destroy us with its darkness? And the answer that came out of me was, it is only a shadow. And when you fight a shadow on the wall, lit on the wall, and bleed up your hands by pounding a shadow, the shadow doesn't exist. It is your identity with the shadow, so much so that you pound it to the point of hurting your hands, that you misunderstand that the shadow is you reflected in the true light. So the shadow has no power. Your identity with it has all the power. Withdraw your identity from it and stop beating a shadow on the wall. And I was surprised it just came out like that. And I'm a Scorpio, double Scorpio. She's a Taurus. So we're opposites, attracting and repelling. So I loved how in her Taurus stubbornness, she would go deeper and deeper. And we went through nearly a whole hour going deeper, but we came to that. And then there was this long pause. And she said, "Wow, for 25 years or more, I have been asking this question to everybody, friends and people I've met. And I'm just thinking, my God, her friends were Bobby Kennedy. Her friends were Martin Luther King, you know." So she was asking that question. I mean, I've read her, not so much her spiritual books, but when she was doing the out on a limb, Time Magazine did a whole pile of her books, and some of mine were in it. My first book was in the pile in the center with the red and black stripe binder, spine. Millennium Book of Prophecy, which was my big breakout book into this in 1987. So she was so I'm pondering on this and saying, my God, she's spoken to some of the most amazing poets and people because I've read her about her life in Hollywood, and she's, great actors and actresses and stuff. And she asked this question and she told me, said, for the first time, I feel like I have an answer that I can really go into with. So, so, you know, I did tell her in the warm up to the debate, I told her about how my career, the turning point changed my life, and that I decided not, just like your character did. Your character decided to have children rather than have a career. And Anne Margaret, I think, no, not Anne Margaret. Anyway, it's the wife of Mel Brooks. I can't remember her name, but she played the one who didn't have kids and become the great star, but she was also getting older. And it's a great real movie to see. You must see it. The Turning Point is a fantastic movie and a great story and great cast. And so um, they, I walked away. I didn't become a parent, but I walked away into another career. And her response was a long pause of silence. I think she was just trying to deal with that. But I did another show with her later, but I consider the first show we did is the heads over shoulders the best, most interesting interview I ever did on radio. And it's an important thing to bring up now because um, shadows are descending upon this world. But in some way, they can't, a shadow can't put out a candle of consciousness and love. It cannot do it. And if there's just a few more candles, 200 more, this is what will happen. If what I'm saying is happening, if the 200 are here already, and not just here, but awakened, scattered around this world, just their presence here, having an influence, this is what will happen. In the coming weeks, we will find this war coming up to the abyss, coming up to nuclear weapons, but they won't be fired. But it's like they're trying, even trying to do it, and they're stumbling over it, so it won't happen. So every time this darkness is kind of overtaking a lot of the human race because of the connection is their identity with the fear of change. Like the identity of beating the shadow on the wall, your identity with the fear of change is another way of beating on a shadow and bloodying your hand. So the the all this war is just you're beating at shadows. Trump is beating at shadows. Netanyahu is a shadow beating at shadows. Um, he shadowed himself completely in identity of the dark. He's become a wall beating his own darkness. Um, and if there's enough of quality of enlightenment to counterbalance that, it only takes 200, the war will not end up in the end of civilization. Maybe a few nuclear bombs are lit off and it shocks the world into attention. This would be another level that we never encountered in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which I lived through. The last 13 days of my life as a 6-year-old ended on my birthday when I became 7 in 1962, October 29th. And it's defined my life. And now it's coming again. And this time there might be nuclear explosions, but this time that might actually scare people straight. So the if the 200 are there, we will not destroy ourselves as much as we try, with eyes wide shut, to walk into the catastrophes that Stormberger had foreseen. Any questions?
There is one other question that we have. John, what do you think about the negotiations that fell apart? What should Iran be looking for, and what should America and Israel be looking for?
Well, Iran is clear what it is putting out. Iran has been empowered by this dastardly surprise attacks and uncivilized behavior of Israel and the United States. And Iran's terms are clear. And it just fulfills a thing I've constantly warned. Don't go against the Shia minority in Islam. The Shia are not afraid to be martyred. Um, the the There's this big lie that people put out that Iran is a terrorist country. But can you name me anything Iran has done? You can name ISIS. You can name Al Qaeda. You can name any number of Salafist Sunni Muslim majority, extreme terrorist organizations. But you will not find any association with these terrorist organizations with the Shia minority, which is mostly, it's 260 million Shia that are mostly in, two-thirds of them are in, or two-thirds of Iraq and Iran are the where most of them live, but they also live over the oil fields on the coast of Saudi Arabia, and they're constantly persecuted. They also live in the Alawite sect of Shia that used to be the regime, and a lot of Shia are in Syria. The Houthis, the Ansar Allah, are also a Shia group in Yemen. Um, they're slow to harness to war, but if you, just like the Russians, but if you get them harnessed up, they will defeat you completely. So what the Israel under Netanyahu, he's loud and clear. His idea is to destroy Iran and break it up into a bunch of to destroy it and make it a collapsed society. That's what he's about. That's it. It's pretty simple. The United States is its government, and especially its president, is under blackmail from this Zionist entity, Mr. Netanyahu, and his government, which is an apartheid, ethno-supremacist, fascist state, with 80% of the people there completely all for it. Genocide, the Palestine people, all of it. I'm sorry to say, my Jewish heritage hates to say it. They have become the new Nazis. They have become the new genociders. The karmic echo of Adolf Hitler is being in a reverse image. The people who were victimized in the last Holocaust, the Semites of the last Holocaust, are now the victimizers of another set of cousin, brother, sister Semites. The Palestinians are also from the same root as the Hebrews and Jews, from Abraham. It's weird how karmic echoes seem to happen. So, just read the 10 points of what the Iranians are wanting. Their bargaining chip might be to let go of the reparations. But frankly, because there is no law in international law anymore, this world has become the world of the jungle now, again, because the United Nations has completely failed and probably should be replaced by another kind of United Nations. Probably move it to China, get it out of America, let America fall into its isolationism out of the hegemonic period that it's in. That's ending very fast, as I said it would over the years. And so, um, Iran um, does not want to be bombed anymore, does not want their diplomats massacred, brought in by the sweet words of Trump and Netanyahu and people. Oh, we got a deal. It's coming. Got a deal. And then the next day murdering them. They've murdered two diplomatic missions from Iran. Um, I'm surprised they're even talking to them. Would you talk to them? Would you talk to them? If your errand of peace and mercy is not once but twice massacred and trapped. So just read the 10 points. Just put the 10 points on X or something. You'll find each of the points there. They don't want they want all presence of United States bases out of Western Asia. And they've chased that with annihilating 13 of them into being uninhabitable bases. They wiped out all the major pyramid-sized radar systems that we had in the Middle East, blinding Israel from warnings of the missiles by 1 minute to no minute at all. I mean, that's what you get in response when we've seen now Trump and the Israelis wage wars of aggression that were the reason Nazi Germany and its leaders that survived World War II were taken to trial in Nuremberg and hung unto death for being leaders responsible for creating a war of aggression, which is a war of choice, not a war of necessity. It's where I'm going to take your stuff and wipe my neighbors out because I can. And all the evils of war sprout from wars of aggression. And what the United States has done is war of aggression, a lot of them. And they finally ran up against a country that will thump them on their bum. And hopefully, sometimes I had to thump a few bullies when in the sandlot when I was a kid. And, after they bounce on their bum on the kitty litter, it was they bullied no longer. And the America, Trump, and our country, we're being led into wars of aggression. And, if it's your country, and if you're also being made responsible for these genocides, you're a part of it. You're like the good Germans who just kept quiet and just didn't say anything and looked the other way when their Jewish neighbors were beaten in the middle of the night and dragged off into concentration camps. We're all behaving like, oh, look the other way. Let's just watch TV. Let's just avoid this. But you are responsible, all of you, all of us, me, you, me too, because the government that we have, which is our government, is doing war crimes. So just inform yourselves. I come back to it again. Your misinformation is your doom. Stop being fed bunk and prove me wrong. This will be this will be recorded. This live show will be with the other shows. You can hear me in recording. If you missed the names, go check out those names and start at least informing yourself of what other news agencies are saying, and you might discover that you've been sorely misinformed. And here's the other reason why it's so difficult. No one wants to feel like an idiot or a fool, you know. It's like one time when my brother was just becoming a Jesus freak in the early 70s, and he he was really he said so. I told him just recently. I said, I told him and Linda, his wife, they came visit me, and I said, I gotta tell you, Jim, I gotta remind you of this because it changed my life. Uh, when you were trying to convince me to be a Christian, that didn't quite work out, but you one time made two statements. One was, um, "Hey John, are you happy? Are you happy with your life?" And I felt like such a fool that I got angry. I was like, "Well, yeah, yeah, I'm happy. Yeah." And I just felt like a fool. I am a fool. Sometimes it hurts, but it's like, yeah, that's a kind of important question, fundamental question to ask. And I hadn't even asked it. I'm already like 14, 15 years old or something, and I hadn't asked it. So I started asking those fundamental questions thanks to my brother, even though I was really pissed off with him for saying it. And the other thing he said that was really a lightning bolt of brightness, insight into me was he said, "I wonder how people can sit with God and sing hallelujah, hallelujah forever and not be bored or, what I mean, even if you're sitting with God and the Lamb of and Jesus, how long do you think you would last sing hallelujah, hallelujah forever?" I mean, in a way, that sounds like hell to me because, after a while, it's like, uh, but he kind of solved it in a way. He said, I wonder if the kingdom of God, maybe it lives in the eternity of the present. I was like, I mean, that whole idea has become the foundation of my seeking to this very day. That if there's time, there has to be no time. Do you really live in time? Or is it just the mind and the body that lives in time? The you I'm talking about is that which is never born and never died, that visits this world of time and mind and goal and movement of consciousness in a body for a time as its vehicle, and then departs again back to the source of no time, the eternity of the present. So I told Jim this. He was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. I said, you planted two very important seeds which have defined my entire spiritual journey by innocent accident. So these things that are around us that are so frightening and so threatening to our future existence um, are not our eternal now. It cannot be destroyed because it's never been born and therefore it can never die. It is a free and loving consciousness that is even free of existing and not existing. It's a whole different way of perceiving things. It's the source where all things come and all things disappear back into. Call it God, call it rediscovery of your lost innocence, call it whatever you like. No label can touch it. It is even free of all labels. We may need labels in the world of time and movement of consciousness in time to hint about something that is not a part of this. Um, it will survive even unto the world's death if it comes soon or later. It cannot be destroyed by even a nuclear war. This is a big universe. Infinite worlds and possibilities rise from the source of this no time ever now. And if we destroy our civilization to the point where we can't incarnate here anymore, we will awaken in some world that is appropriate for our level of awareness. If we live like savages, we will be born in a world of savages. If we did not live as savages, we will be born into a world of enlightened people. The universe is infinite. It's play. It's what the Hindus call the play of existence, of creation. The creation is the the play of the waves on the surface of an oceanic source where in all identified waves trying to find that ocean, they can't find it. They look everywhere. They slap against other waves to find this ocean. It's as simple as the salt water inside their little wave bodies that rise and fall. Everyone is the source. Everyone is the nature of ever now. And if the wave looks in, the wave will discover that all the salt water is exactly the same in all other different shapes of waves. So why do you fight with each other when you know this? If you truly know it, you can't fight and cause trouble. Or if you do, you will understand how the mechanics of ego and stuff starts working in your life. So, any other questions?
No, that's the last question that we have in the chat, and we don't have anyone on the mic asking for a question. So we're near the end of the show here, John. So if you can explain to the audience what the readings and the periodicals are. The audience can click the link that's in the description of this video and they'll take you to John's website. So please sign up for the periodicals and the readings.
Yeah, come to the website. It's going to be maintenance and eventually to a different format so that it's easier to read on a phone. But if you want to read it on a phone, just get Adobe Liquid. It's an app that is absolutely free, and I have the ad on my Hogue Prophecy reports so that it will format it to an eyeball friendly for cell phones. I'm It's been a bit of a delay with financial issues and stuff that I've been trying to update my website. Um, it's it so it's looks better on a laptop than on your phone if you don't have Adobe, although you can get it for free. And then you come to the website, you will see I've been too busy with the war to update last several of them, so it's a few prophecy bulletins ago. The war has caused that and other issues. So um, what you'll find is a free sample and some excerpts from the other subscriber articles. And you'll see at the front a way to click on and become a 12 month subscriber for $60 or a little more. You can also, you'll find there's a point, these couple paragraphs of options for you to join. Basically, one option is you can do the 12 months. And also, if you don't want to send it by PayPal, you can send it as a check payable to John Hogue at the mailbox PO box that I have there. And the other option is you can get an automatic payment set up at PayPal by going through the link that I have there, which is on my website, and then you'll see donate with a lot of Visa cards up in the upper left-hand side. You cursor your mouse to that, click on that, and that takes you into the page into PayPal where you can set up an automatic payment or just a one-time payment. I will see it. If you've done the 60, I will get back to you by email and confirm that it's passed through, and as well as the automatic payment being created. And then I will start with the email that you choose to use to purchase it or one you want me to use. I will start sending you these bulletins, fully illustrated, that will be in a PDF file, Adobe file, attached to your email. Um, and so that's one thing. Now the other thing is I also do readings, and this is the office you'll see me in, and we will do the reading. They can be 2 to 3 hours. They're really deep. I also use astrology at the beginning to kind of define where your body mind vehicle is. That's what the birth chart is, your Kelly Blue Book for your body mind vehicle that you as a soul drive through your life in this visit of this world of change and time and changes of everything. Anyway, um, so that is there. You would also, you will find just all you need to do is you click on the email that I have, the links that I have for the automatic payments and all, and then I will see it, and then I'll get back to you and set up our time for the reading. I usually read at 5 p.m. Pacific time, whether it's daylight or standard. It works well for the American audience. It also works well for my Australian audience, just a day later in the morning, if you're in Sydney time. But I can also arrange times for you. And for European people, it's It's 11 a.m. Pacific time, which gets at 8 p.m. in Britain and 9 p.m. in Central European time. So I have an international audience, so um, that's how you can do it. And it'll be one-on-one, you and me. Here I will be in my Renaissance black shirt, talking to you like I talk to Paul and you on the show, but it'll be more one-on-one, intimate way, and uh, it'll be a lot more playful than talking politics and stuff like that that we've just done. So hopefully some of you haven't been intimidated by the way I was talking, but this is about the world. I'm channeling that. I, when I'm talking with you, it's a lot of people love these readings. So um, yeah, so I'm available if you like to have a reading. And I use the Osho Zen Tarot deck. And I do an unusual thing. I don't know. Maybe somebody could write me and email me about it because I'm wondering if people do this. I do a Celtic cross, which is the main issue, and then you have the key in the lock, I call it. The next card on top is the card, the message from the world of the waves. The bottom card is the message from the ocean, the oceanic consciousness, then the past, then the future. Now, what I will do sometimes, and I wonder if anybody does this, I'm pulled sometimes. I'm in the middle of a Celtic cross, and then there's this card comes up and it tells me, give me a reading. I take the card off that Celtic cross, put that one aside, and I start doing a Celtic cross on that card. Now, then, once that is made clear by another Celtic cross, I might just not even go back to the first cross, or it's like move on to a deeper layer, or I will put it back in and continue with that Celtic cross. I don't make decisions in this. My master initiated me into my work being doing nothing at all and just allowing the presence of consciousness to come in. And then whatever I say and do in the reading, just like whatever I'm saying and doing in these interviews, is perfectly right. It's the right thing to be delivered. So, um, so anyway, and then eventually, sometimes if we get deeper into it, then the cards really start doing amazing things. They start really, when they really feel like, yeah, this is where we ought to go. The cards all just start lining up and doing some amazing stuff. And I know a lot of the people have done readings with me. They go, wow, this is amazing. So, so those are the two possibilities. Um, and thank you for listening to me tonight. It was a little intense, but we are living in intense times. So I apologize for that, but what can I do? It's what's happening.
So everybody, thank you for watching, and please click the link that's in the description of this video to get to John's website and help support the work that he does. So we're going to be doing another show in 2 weeks or so, and hopefully,
Be a very different world each 2 week cycle. It's like it.
before we go, I did do a poll, and I asked the audience. There was 34 people that voted. When will the Iran war end? And the options were in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, July, or never. So 59% of the people actually said never.
Uh,
32% said July, 9% in 4 weeks.
well, in this Hogue Prophecy report that I've just released, I did some calculations on some of the speculation on just how many missiles the Iranians have. And even if the low number is what they have, around 20,000, at the rate that they're firing, they'll be firing into October 1st. And you got to remember that those underground bases, they build hundreds of missiles a month. They have all the tools and stuff underground. So it's not just a stock that has to come from somewhere else. They are built down there. The materials are down there. And now the other possibility is, as the Iranians have been sometimes going to a steady 20 to 15 missiles a day, people say, oh, they're running out of missiles. Well, no, what's happening is they're more modern missiles, that the older missiles that took out all the defense missiles of their combatants, of their opposites in Israel and America, well, now the these missiles are don't have to be hitting Israel in the hundreds anymore. And the rate of damage that's being done is much higher now with less missiles. So if that is going on, if we're going from 3,000 missiles a month to 500 missiles a month and doing even more damage, they can do this for years. Even if they had 20,000, it could be a couple of years. So they have escalation dominance. And if our president was smart and Israeli wanted to survive their nation, it's time to stop because you're going to lose and be destroyed. And by the way, you brought it on yourselves. America, you brought it on yourselves. Israel, you brought it on yourselves. You are fighting wars of aggression. And if you learned anything from World War II, from the Japanese Imperial Empire and the great Deutsches Reich that caused wars of choice, not of need, and aggression, you're the bad guys now. It always happens to every nation. We can play the good guys and be the ones, the chosen ones, and all that, just like the Hitler and his Aryans were the chosen people too. Look what happened to them. You're on the path of defeat and destruction. Take your leadership into tow and stop this, or your countries will be very changed and not in a good way. Just remember how Germany and Japan looked like after the last wars of aggression were fought in world wars.
Okay. Well, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you, audience, for typing in the chat and watching. Greatly appreciate it. And the ones that on X basis throughout the show, thank you for listening. So, John, say goodbye to everybody.
Goodbye to everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.